The roses were wrong. That should have been my first warning. Their scent too sweet, too cloying, like perfume masking decay. But I was floating in that dreamy pre-wedding haze where everything feels symbolic and meaningful, even the way the morning light caught my engagement ring and scattered tiny rainbows across the dressing room wall. "You look perfect, Solstice," Ava whispered, adjusting my veil with trembling fingers. Her voice had an odd catch to it, but I chalked it up to emotion. That's what best friends do at weddings, right? They cry and fuss and make everything feel more momentous. I smoothed down the front of my dress, the silk cool against my palms. 6 months of planning had led to this moment. 6 months of Mark's gentle teasing about my spreadsheets and timelines, his blue eyes crinkling at the corners as he called me his beautiful control freak. The door burst open and my sister Ava tumbled in, already dabbing at her eyes. The flowers are all set up, the string quartet is tuning, and, oh my God, look at you. She wrapped me in a careful hug, mindful of my hair and makeup. Mark's not going to know what hit him. If only she knew how prophetic those words would turn out to be. The ceremony started exactly on schedule naturally. I'd timed it down to the minute. The late October sun streamed through stained glass, painting everything in jewel tones. Mark waited at the altar, looking devastating in his tux, and for a moment my heart actually skipped. This was it. This was my happily ever after, my proof that love could last, that not everyone was like my father. I should have known better. I made it through most of my vows, voice steady despite the emotion threatening to choke me. Mark's eyes never left mine as he promised to love, honor, cherish. His words were perfect, practiced. The minister had just asked if anyone had cause to object when the chapel doors slammed open. "I object." The voice rang out clear and cold as winter. A woman in a red dress stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the autumn afternoon. "I object because the groom is still legally married." To me, the silence that followed was absolute. I turned to Mark, waiting for him to laugh, to explain that this was some horrible mistake, but his face had gone slack with shock, then tight with guilt. In that moment, I knew. My stomach dropped as if I'd missed a step in the dark. "Savannah," he breathed, and that single word, that name I'd never heard before, contained volumes of history and secrets. The woman, Savannah, strode down the aisle, her heels clicking against marble like gunshots. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out? That you could just start over with your pretty new bride while our divorce was still pending?" Murmurs rippled through the guests. I felt their stares like physical touches, their pity and horror pressing against my skin. My vision tunneled until all I could see was Mark's face, watching him struggle to find words. "I can explain," he started, reaching for my hand. I jerked away. "Don't." My voice came out surprisingly steady. "Don't touch me." From the corner of my eye, I saw Ava shift uncomfortably, her hands twisting the bouquet she held. Something about her posture, her careful stillness, sent a second wave of nausea through me. She knew, my best friend, my maid of honor. She'd known. The realization hit me like a physical blow, but I refused to crumple, refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Instead, I felt something crystallize inside me, hard and sharp and cold. I turned to face our guests, my smile as brittle as frozen glass. "I'm so sorry, everyone. It seems there's been a terrible mistake. Please enjoy the reception. The food and wine are already paid for. Consider it a very expensive party." Scattered, nervous laughter. More whispers. I walked down the aisle with my head high, past Savannah with her triumphant smirk, past the shocked faces of friends and family. My heels clicked against marble in perfect rhythm, counting down steps to freedom. It wasn't until I reached the chapel doors that I allowed myself one glance back. Mark stood frozen at the altar, mouth still working silently. Ava wouldn't meet my eyes. And there in the front row, my father watched with an expression I recognized all too well, the same look he'd worn when my mother discovered his affairs. I pushed through the heavy doors into autumn sunshine that suddenly felt too bright, too harsh. My carefully constructed future lay in ruins behind me, but something else was rising from the ashes, something that tasted like rage and promise and possibility. They thought they knew me, sweet, organized solstice who always colored inside the lines. They had no idea what I was capable of, but they were about to find out. I smiled, and this time there was nothing brittle about it. The October wind bit through my wedding dress as I stood on the hotel balcony, watching guests trickle out of the reception I'd never attended. My phone buzzed constantly. Messages from Ava, from Christian, from what felt like everyone except the two people I most wanted to hear from. And wasn't that telling? I'd been up here for hours, letting the cold numb everything until my thoughts finally started making sense. The sun had set, leaving me in twilight, surrounded by the potted mums I'd chosen to match our autumn theme. Everything perfectly coordinated, perfectly planned. What a joke. The sliding door whispered open behind me. Saul, Ava's voice tentative. You're going to freeze out here. I didn't turn around. How long did you know? Silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken things. Finally, she sighed. I found out 3 weeks ago. I wanted to tell you, but 3 weeks. The words came out sharp as icicles. 3 weeks of dress fittings and flower arrangements, and you just, what? Decided to let me walk down that aisle anyway? It wasn't that simple. She moved closer, and I could smell her perfume, the same scent she'd worn since college, when we'd shared everything. Mark came to me when Savannah first contacted him. He said he was handling it, that the divorce would be finalized before the wedding. He seemed so sincere, Saul. And then, when things got complicated, my laugh sounded foreign to my own ears. Let me guess, he convinced you it would hurt me more to know, that it was kinder to keep me in the dark. Something like that. Her voice had gone small. He can be very persuasive when he wants to be. I finally turned to face her. Ava stood huddled in her bridesmaid's dress, mascara smudged beneath her eyes. For a moment, I saw us as we used to be. Two girls sharing secrets and dreams, swearing nothing would ever come between us. The memory made what I had to say next harder. Did you sleep with him? She flinched as if I'd slapped her. What? No. God, Sewell, I would never. But you knew he was sleeping with someone else, besides Savannah. The way she froze told me everything. How did you... The bartender at the rehearsal dinner, the one who kept giving me these pitying looks. She pulled me aside earlier. Apparently Mark's been bringing different women there for months. She recognized him from the engagement photos I'd posted everywhere. Ava pressed her hands to her face. I'm so sorry. Should have what? Been my friend? Told me the truth? Protected me from making the biggest mistake of my life? Each question landed like a blow. Instead, you helped him, covered for him. God, all those times you encouraged me to trust the process when I worried about wedding details. You were just buying him time, weren't you? I thought I was helping. She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. You were so happy, so excited about the wedding. And after everything with your dad, I couldn't be the one to ruin that for you. The mention of my father cracked something open inside me. You know what the worst part is? When I saw Savannah standing there in the chapel, my first thought wasn't even about Mark. It was wondering if you knew, if my best friend had betrayed me too. Sul, please, don't. I moved past her toward the door, then paused. You know what's funny? All those years watching my mom try to forgive my dad, I swore I'd never be that person. Never be the one who didn't see it coming. Turns out I was right. I'm actually worse. At least she didn't have her best friend helping him lie to her. I stepped inside, leaving Ava on the balcony. The hotel room was a mess of wedding preparations. My overnight bag, makeup scattered across the vanity, the wedding planner I'd filled with color-coded tabs and detailed timelines. A life I'd planned down to the minute, built on foundations of sand. My phone buzzed again. A text from Braxton, my coworker. Just heard. Need anything? Below it was a message from Mark. Please let me explain. Meet me at our spot tomorrow? I stared at the screen until the words blurred. The smart thing would be to walk away. Delete their numbers, change my locks, start fresh. That's what my therapist June would advise. She'd been warning me about my trust issues for months. But as I stood there, surrounded by the wreckage of my almost marriage, a different path started taking shape, one that would require precision planning, careful manipulation, and a complete willingness to burn everything to the ground. I picked up my wedding planner and opened to a blank page. Time to start a new list. The coffee shop's morning rush swirled around me as I traced my finger along the rim of my third espresso. My laptop screen glowed with open tabs. Mark's social media, his company's website, every digital breadcrumb I could follow. Amazing how much of your life ends up online when you're not expecting anyone to look too closely. Mind if I join you? I looked up to find Braxton holding his own coffee, expression carefully neutral. Of course he'd know I'd be here. It was 2 blocks from our office, and I was supposed to be on my honeymoon. The empty chair across from me seemed to mock us both. Sure, I said, closing my laptop. Though I should warn you, I'm apparently toxic right now. Eva told me half the office is taking sides. He settled into the chair, pushing a paper bag toward me. Blueberry scone, and the office isn't taking sides. They're just processing. Like how Mark's assistant processed right out of her job this morning. The news had hit my inbox an hour ago. Her resignation effective immediately. Another piece of the puzzle clicking into place. Braxton's eyes narrowed slightly. How did you know about that? I have my sources. I didn't mention that those sources included the IT guy who owed me a favor, or the encrypted emails I'd found. Same way I know about the missing client funds Mark's been trying to cover up. Solstice? Braxton's voice dropped lower. Whatever you're thinking of doing, I'm not thinking of doing anything. I took a deliberate sip of coffee. I'm just gathering information, like how Mark's been embezzling money through fake vendor accounts, or how Ava helped him doctor the books when she did our company's audit last quarter. The color drained from Braxton's face. How long have you known? About the embezzlement? Since this morning? About Ava's involvement? I smiled, and it felt like breaking glass. That's brand new, thanks to your reaction just now. He ran a hand through his hair, shoulders slumping. Look, I only suspected something was off with the numbers. I never had proof, and by the time I started putting pieces together, you were already engaged. And you didn't want to be the bearer of bad news? The bitter taste in my mouth had nothing to do with coffee. You know, I'm getting really tired of people making decisions about what I can't handle. That's not fair. No. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the photos I'd found buried in Mark's cloud storage. These are from his trip to Aspen 3 months ago. Funny how he told me it was a business retreat, but all the pictures are him and his assistant looking very unbusinesslike. Braxton's expression shifted from defensive to concerned. Sol, what exactly are you planning to do with all this? Nothing illegal. I started gathering my things, just making sure I understand exactly what kind of man I almost married and exactly who helped him fool me. Wait. His hand caught my wrist as I stood. I know you're hurt. You have every right to be. But revenge won't make it better. I looked down at where his fingers pressed against my pulse point, remembering how many times we'd worked late together, how many coffee runs and shared lunches, how many opportunities he'd had to warn me. You know what's interesting? I kept my voice light. Everyone keeps telling me how I feel, what I should do, what's best for me. But nobody's asked what I want. Okay. He released my wrist, sat back. What do you want, Solstice? The question hit harder than I expected. What did I want? To hurt them like they hurt me? To expose every lie, every betrayal? To prove I wasn't as naive as they all thought? I want the truth, I finally said. All of it. And then I want everyone involved to face consequences for their choices, including me. Including you? I ignored red flags, dismissed warnings, chose comfortable lies over uncomfortable questions. I shouldered my bag. But at least I can own my mistakes. Can they say the same? He was quiet for a long moment. The assistant, Rachel, she didn't quit. She's going to the FBI with evidence. My heart stuttered. How do you know? Because I helped her gather it. He pulled out a USB drive, set it on the table between us. Everything's here, the fake accounts, the wire transfers, the altered records. She's meeting with them tomorrow morning. I stared at the tiny device that could destroy everything. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know the whole truth. And because whatever you decide to do next, he stood, meeting my eyes steadily. I want you to understand exactly what you're walking into. I picked up the drive, its weight insignificant compared to the choices it represented. The cafe's warmth suddenly felt stifling. Thank you, I said, and meant it, for finally letting me decide for myself. I left him there, mind already racing with possibilities. The game had changed, but maybe that's exactly what I needed. Savannah's house was exactly what I'd expected. Modern, minimalist, expensive, the kind of place that screamed successful lawyer without saying a word. What I hadn't expected was her opening the door with red-rimmed eyes and a half-empty wine glass. You've got nerve showing up here, she said, but stepped aside to let me in. I moved past her into a living room bathed in afternoon light. No wedding photos, I noticed. No evidence Mark had ever lived here. Just clean lines and abstract art that probably cost more than my car. I brought something you might want to see. I pulled out the USB drive, set it on her glass coffee table. Though I'm guessing you already know about the embezzlement. She went very still. How did you? The same way I found out about the pregnancy. The wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the hardwood. Red liquid spread like blood between us. He told you? He didn't have to. I kept my voice steady despite my racing heart. Your medical records were in his email, along with the messages about the procedure he insisted you get 2 months ago. Savannah sank onto the couch, hands trembling. I never wanted. He said it would ruin everything, that the timing was wrong. The timing? I couldn't help the bitter laugh. You mean because he was planning to marry me? No. She looked up, eyes sharp despite the wine. Because the FBI was closing in. A baby would have complicated his exit strategy. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. The wedding was his alibi, a respectable new wife, a fresh start, a way to look innocent when everything fell apart. And I was the loose end he needed to tie up. She gestured at the USB drive. What's on that? Everything. Account numbers, transfer records, emails. Enough to bury him. Your name's all over it too. Fear flickered across her face. I never touched the money. Any paperwork with my signature was forged. I know. I sat across from her, careful to avoid the spreading wine stain. That's why I'm here. The FBI is moving tomorrow morning. You need to get ahead of it. Why are you helping me? Suspicion crept into her voice. I ruined your wedding. No, you saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. And now? I met her gaze steadily. Now I want to return the favor. She studied me for a long moment. There's more. What aren't you telling me? Ava, my former maid of honor. She's involved. She helped cover up the embezzlement during audits, and I swallowed hard. I think she and Mark were planning something bigger, something that would have left us both taking the fall. Savannah reached for the USB drive, turning it over in her hands. You know, when I first found out about you, I hated you. Thought you were just another foolish woman he'd charmed. But you're not what I expected. Neither are you. I stood, stepping carefully around the spilled wine. The FBI agent's name is Torres. Tell him everything. And Savannah, I'm sorry about the baby. Her laugh was hollow. Me too. Though maybe it's better this way. One less person for Mark to destroy. I was almost to the door when she called after me. What are you going to do now? Now? I thought of the second copy of the USB drive in my bag, of the carefully worded emails I'd sent that morning. Now I'm going to make sure everyone pays for their choices, including Mark. Be careful, she warned. He's more dangerous than you know. So am I. Outside, the autumn air felt cleaner somehow. My phone buzzed, a text from Ava asking if I was okay. Below it was a message from June reminding me about our appointment tomorrow. And there, at the bottom, was Mark. Missing you. Can we talk? I typed out a response before I could second-guess myself. Actually, yes. Let's meet tomorrow. There's something I need to tell you. His reply came instantly. Our usual spot? Noon? Perfect, I wrote back, then added, I think it's time we were honest with each other. The irony of those words made me smile as I walked to my car. In my bag, the second USB drive felt like a live wire, crackling with potential energy. Tomorrow, Mark would learn exactly how honest I could be. My phone buzzed again. Braxton this time. Rachel just finished her FBI interview. You sure about this? I thought of Savannah's trembling hands, of Ava's betrayal, of all the women Mark had used and discarded. Absolutely sure, I replied. Everything's going according to plan. But as I drove home, Savannah's warning echoed in my head. Mark was dangerous. The question was, had I finally become dangerous enough to match him? June's office always smelled like lavender and old books, a combination that usually calmed me. Today, it just made my stomach churn as I perched on the familiar leather couch, watching her read through the printouts I'd brought. She paused, adjusting her glasses. This is quite extensive, Solstice. I've been busy. I picked at a loose thread on my sleeve. Turns out insomnia is great for investigative work. I can see that. She set the papers aside, fixing me with that steady gaze I'd come to both appreciate and dread. What concerns me is how much energy you're putting into this revenge plan instead of processing your trauma. I am processing it. I gestured at the papers. By doing something about it. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're avoiding the pain by focusing on action. On control. The word hit like a slap. Control. Wasn't that what had gotten me into this mess? My desperate need to believe I could manage everything, predict everything, protect myself from exactly this kind of betrayal? Maybe I'm tired of being the one who gets hurt, I said finally. Maybe I want them to understand what it feels like. And what about what it feels like for you, right now? She leaned forward slightly. When was the last time you actually let yourself feel the grief of what happened? My phone buzzed. Another message from Mark about our upcoming meeting. I ignored it, but June noticed. Still in contact with him? It's necessary for the plan. Is it? Or is it a way to maintain connection, even a painful one? I stood abruptly, moving to the window. Outside, leaves skittered across the parking lot, red and gold and dying. You don't understand. This isn't just about the wedding anymore. Mark and Ava, they've hurt other people. They're still hurting people. Someone has to stop them. And that someone has to be you? Yes. The force of my own response startled me, because everyone else who knew just stood by and watched. They all had their reasons, their excuses, but they watched him destroy lives and did nothing. Like your mother's friends did with your father? The parallel hit hard enough to make me grip the windowsill. That's different. Is it? Her voice was gentle. Or are you trying to fight a battle you couldn't win as a child? Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Braxton. Emergency. Mark knows about Rachel's FBI interview. He's cleaning out accounts now. My hands started shaking. I have to go. Solstice? No, I mean, I really have to go. Right now. I grabbed my bag, already pulling up my banking app. Mark's making his move early. June stood, concern etching her features. Whatever you're planning, please be careful. Revenge might feel like justice, but it can consume you if you're not careful. I paused at the door, thinking of the elaborate trap I'd set, of all the carefully placed pieces ready to fall. What if I'm already consumed? Then ask yourself what's left when the fire burns out. She moved to her desk, wrote something quickly. This is my personal number. Call me anytime. Promise me. I took the paper, folded it carefully into my wallet. I promise. And June, thank you for everything. Outside, my phone exploded with notifications. Braxton had sent screenshots of account transfers. Eva was calling. Even Ava had texted. We need to talk. It's urgent. I got in my car, hands steady now, as I pulled up Mark's contact. His smiling profile picture stared back at me. The same one from our engagement photos. The same lie. Change of plans, I typed. Meet me now, usual spot. His response came instantly. Can't. Dealing with work emergency. I know about the accounts, Mark. All of them. Meet me now or I call the FBI myself. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, 30 minutes. I started the car, mind racing. Everything was accelerating, spinning faster than I'd planned. June's words echoed in my head. What's left when the fire burns out? My phone buzzed one more time. Savannah. Be careful. He's cornered now. That makes him dangerous. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror, barely recognizing the woman who stared back. Her eyes were harder, her smile sharper. She looked dangerous, too. I know, I texted back. Then I pulled out into traffic, heading toward the coffee shop where Mark had proposed, where he'd first woven his web of lies, where in 30 minutes everything would either fall into place or fall apart completely. Either way, there was no turning back now. The coffee shop windows reflected twin versions of reality. The warm interior where Mark waited, and the gray storm clouds gathering outside. I stood in the space between, watching him check his phone every 30 seconds, his usual composure cracking around the edges. Thunder rumbled as I pushed open the door. The same barista who'd warned me about Mark's infidelity gave me a concerned look, but I kept walking. Mark's head snapped up, relief washing over his features before he caught himself. Solstice. He stood, pulling out a chair. Always the gentleman, even now. I was worried you. Save it. I sat across from him, placing my phone on the table, recording app running. Where's the money, Mark? His smile flickered. What money? The client accounts, the ones you've been draining all morning. I pulled out printed screenshots, spread them across the table. Or should we talk about Rachel's FBI interview first? The color drained from his face. You don't understand. Actually, I do. Better than you think. I leaned forward. What I don't understand is why Ava's name is on half these transfers. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, then calculation. Ava? No, she just did the audits. She wouldn't. My laugh felt like broken glass. Still lying? Even now? I pulled up the email chain on my phone, turned it toward him. She's been helping you move money for months. The only question is whether she was playing you or you were playing her. Before he could respond, the door chimed. Ava walked in, freezing when she saw us. Her mascara was smudged, hair wild like she'd been running her hands through it. Don't stop on my account, I said, gesturing to the empty chair. Join us. We were just discussing your extracurricular activities. She sat slowly, eyes darting between us. Mark, what did you tell her? Nothing yet. I answered for him, but he was about to explain why you both thought I'd make the perfect fall guy for your little scheme. Thunder cracked closer, making the windows rattle. Mark's hands clenched around his untouched coffee. It wasn't like that, Ava whispered. We never meant to get caught, I finished. Yeah, that part's clear. What I can't figure out is whether you were working together the whole time or if this is just a spectacular coincidence. They exchanged a look that told me everything. How long? My voice came out steadier than I felt. 6 months, Ava said, just as Mark said. A year. Another crack in their united front. Interesting. The wedding was your idea, wasn't it? I asked Mark. Perfect cover story. Perfect alibi. Perfect way to make me look complicit when it all fell apart. I loved you, he protested. That part was real. Was it? Or did you just love how convenient I was? I pulled out one final paper, a bank statement with a very specific transfer highlighted, because this payment to Ava the day after our engagement suggests otherwise. Ava's sharp intake of breath was almost drowned out by the rain now pounding against the windows. Mark's face had gone completely still. You weren't supposed to find that, he said quietly. I wasn't supposed to find a lot of things. I stood, gathering the papers. The FBI will be interested in all of it, though, especially the offshore accounts. Wait, Ava grabbed my arm. Please, I can explain everything. Can you explain why my best friend helped orchestrate my humiliation? Why she took money to watch me walk into a trap? I jerked away from her grip. Save your explanations for your lawyer. You don't want to do this. Mark's voice had dropped to that dangerous register I'd never heard before our wedding day. Think about what you're risking. I have. I picked up my phone, stopped the recording. That's why I already sent copies of everything to Agent Torres this morning, and to every board member at your firm, and to that reporter who's been investigating financial fraud cases. The look that passed between them was pure panic now. Outside, lightning split the sky. You're bluffing, Mark said, but his voice shook. Am I? Check your email. Should be hitting inboxes right about. I glanced at my watch. Now. Their phones buzzed simultaneously. I watched their faces as they read, as they realized exactly how thoroughly I'd destroyed them. Why? Ava's voice cracked. Why not just turn us in? Why all this? Because I needed to see it, to see you both try to lie your way out one last time. I turned toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Mark? Savannah says hello. I walked out into the storm, letting the rain wash away the last traces of who I used to be. Behind me, through the window, I could see them frantically typing on their phones, making calls that wouldn't save them. My own phone buzzed. Braxton. FBI just arrived at the office. You okay? I watched lightning fracture the sky again and smiled. I will be. The storm chased me all the way to the office, where red and blue lights strobed against rain-slicked windows. I sat in my car, watching FBI agents escort people out under black umbrellas. Mark emerged in handcuffs, head high despite the circumstances, always performing, even now. My phone lit up with Ava's face. Where are you? She demanded when I answered. Everyone's saying, I know what they're saying. I watched Ava being led out next, mascara running down her cheeks. Is Braxton still there? Yeah, he's talking to the agents. Saul, what did you do? What needed to be done? I hung up, stepping out into the rain. The wind whipped my hair around my face as I walked toward the building's entrance. Agent Torres met me at the door, his badge gleaming under fluorescent lights. Ms. Walker, we need to ask you some questions. I assumed you would. I followed him inside, past shocked colleagues and whispered conversations. My heels clicked against marble floors, echoing like heartbeats. They'd set up in the conference room, the same one where I'd first met Mark 3 years ago. He sat at the far end now, hands cuffed in front of him, Ava beside him looking small and scared. Their lawyers hadn't arrived yet. Solstice? Mark's voice carried that familiar warmth, like he could still charm his way out of this. You don't have to do this. Actually, I do. I sat across from them, placing my phone and a small notebook on the table. But first, I want you both to know something. Ava wouldn't meet my eyes. Sol, please. I want you to know that I understand. I opened the notebook, my wedding planner, repurposed for a different kind of orchestration. I understand why you did it, the thrill of taking what you wanted, of thinking you were smarter than everyone else, of feeling powerful instead of afraid. Mark's smile faltered. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I turned to Agent Torres. Did you find the second set of accounts? The ones under his mother's maiden name? Mark's face went slack. Beside him, Ava made a small, wounded sound. You said those were just for tax purposes, she whispered. You said I wouldn't be implicated. He lied, Ava. That's what he does. I met her eyes finally. The question is, are you going to keep protecting him? The conference room fell silent except for the storm raging outside. I could see the moment Ava's loyalty shattered, could practically hear it breaking. The Cayman accounts, she said quietly. Those weren't my idea. And the wedding? She turned to Mark, voice strengthening. Tell her about the wedding, about what you really planned. Mark lunged across the table, but the handcuffs caught him short. Shut up. He was going to frame you for everything. Ava rushed out. After the honeymoon, he was going to transfer the missing money into your accounts, make it look like you'd been stealing for years. I helped him set it up. I'm so sorry, Saul. I'm so sorry. Agent Torres signaled, and two other agents moved to separate them. Mark's face had transformed into something ugly, unfamiliar. You think this makes you clever? He snarled at me. You think you've won? I built this whole thing. Everything you know about finance, about business, I taught you. You're nothing without me. Lightning flashed, throwing harsh shadows across his features. In that moment, I saw my father in him, the same entitled rage, the same inability to accept consequences. You're wrong. I stood, gathering my things. I learned everything I needed to know from watching you underestimate me. I turned to Agent Torres. The notebook has everything: dates, accounts, conversations, and my phone has recordings of both of them admitting involvement. I assume that's enough? He nodded, already reaching for the evidence. More than enough. We'll need you to make a formal statement. Of course. I moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Mark? Savannah's testimony should be interesting, especially the part about the baby. The sound he made was barely human. Ava's eyes went wide with fresh horror. Outside the conference room, Braxton waited. You okay? No. I watched agents lead Mark and Ava in separate directions, their lawyers finally arriving too late to help. But I will be. Was it worth it? He asked quietly. Getting justice? I thought about June's warning about revenge consuming me, about the cost of fighting fire with fire, but I also thought about every woman Mark had hurt, about every lie Ava had helped him tell. It wasn't about justice, I said finally. It was about making sure they couldn't do this to anyone else. The storm was passing now, late afternoon sun breaking through clouds. In its light, I could almost see the shape of who I might become. Someone stronger, yes, but also someone who understood the difference between vengeance and protection. Come on, Braxton said gently. Let's get out of here. I followed him out, leaving behind the ruins of my old life and the architects of its destruction. Sometimes, I was learning, you have to burn everything down to build something true. The autumn wind scattered leaves across my father's gravestone as I placed the newspaper clipping against the marble. The headline was small, just a few lines about Mark's guilty plea and the restitution ordered, but it felt monumental seeing it in print. I thought I'd find you here. Ava's voice carried across the cemetery. She picked her way between headstones, coffee cups in hand. You okay? Better than okay. I accepted the coffee, letting its warmth seep into my fingers. Did you see Ava's sentencing got moved up? Yeah, Christian told me she's cooperating fully now. She settled beside me on the cold ground. You never told me why you chose today to come here. I traced our father's name with my free hand, because I finally understand something he never did, about choices, about consequences, and about running away. The gentleness in her voice nearly undid me. That too. I took a sip of coffee, letting memories surface. Remember how he always had explanations, excuses, how nothing was ever really his fault? Like father, like former fiancé. Exactly. I pulled out June's latest letter from my pocket. She still wrote them weekly, even though I'd stopped needing therapy sessions. She says I've been fighting him all along, through Mark, through Ava, through everyone who thought they could write my story for me. Ava leaned against my shoulder. And now? Now I'm writing my own. I stood, brushing leaves from my clothes. Speaking of which, have you checked your email today? She pulled out her phone, brow furrowing as she read. You're starting a consulting firm for fraud prevention? With Braxton and Savannah. I couldn't help smiling at her surprise. Turns out dismantling a complex financial fraud scheme looks pretty good on a resume. We've already got 3 clients lined up. Soul, that's... She stopped, looking past me. Is that who I think it is? I turned to see Ava standing at the cemetery entrance, uncertainty written across her face. She looked smaller somehow, without her designer clothes and careful makeup. I asked her to come. I said quietly, there's something she needs to hear. Eva squeezed my hand before walking away, leaving me to face the ghost of my former best friend. Ava approached slowly, like she expected me to change my mind. I got your message, she said when she reached me, about wanting closure. Not closure. I gestured to our father's grave. Understanding. She read the headstone, realization dawning. The man who taught you about betrayal. And about forgiveness. I met her eyes steadily. Not the kind that forgets or excuses, the kind that sets you free. I don't deserve. This isn't about what you deserve. I cut her off. It's about who I choose to be, and I choose not to carry the weight of hating you anymore. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I've thought about it every day. How I could have stopped him, warned you. How I let him convince me that hurting you was somehow protecting you. I know. I pulled out an envelope, held it out. That's why I brought you this. Her hands shook as she opened it. A character reference for my sentencing? You did wrong things for complicated reasons, just like he did. I nodded toward the grave. The difference is you owned it. You chose to make it right. Not soon enough. No, but you chose. I stepped back, feeling lighter somehow. That's the thing about choices, Ava. We keep getting to make new ones. She clutched the letter like a lifeline. I don't know how to start over. Yes, you do. I turned to leave, then paused. By the way, when you get out, come find me. The firm could use someone who knows exactly how these schemes work. I walked away before she could respond, joining Eva by the car. The late afternoon sun painted everything in amber light, making even the cemetery look hopeful. You're really offering her a job? Eva asked as we drove away. After everything? I watched the cemetery recede in the mirror, thinking about choices and consequences and the stories we tell ourselves about both. You know what I learned from all this? I said finally. The opposite of betrayal isn't revenge. It's creating something new from the ashes of what burned. Ava smiled, understanding dawning. And that's what you're building? Something new? Something true, I corrected, feeling the future unfold before us like an open road. Something entirely my own.